Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Just Energy for All webinar on the topic of critical minerals, the green energy transition, and the threat to Native American communities. Today's monthly webinar is being co-organized by United Women in Faith and co-sponsored with the Interreligious Working Group on Extractive Industries. My name is Elizabeth Chunhe Lee, or Liz Lee, and I serve as the Director of Mobilization and Advocacy and the outgoing Executive for Economic and Environmental Justice at United Women in Faith. I will be serving as one of your co-moderators for today. I am calling you from Jackson Heights, Queens, New York, the unceded land which is traditionally stewarded by the Munsee, Lenape, Canarsie, and Matinecock. I also want to acknowledge that the church, including what is now the United Methodist Church, that United Women in Faith is connected to, has promulgated, participated, and benefited from settler colonialism and the doctrine of discovery that led to efforts of genocide, theft, and the destruction of Native American peoples, cultures, sacred sites and places, and religious practices. I also want to acknowledge that we as a church and we as an organization have much more to do in learning from and seeking justice with Indigenous peoples in the U.S. And especially around the work around transitioning towards a just renewable energy economy as well. So it's a privilege today that we'll be listening to, and I hope that we'll be heeding from the recommendations of Native American leaders from this webinar. So thank you all for joining us. And I want to invite now my co-moderator, Marianne Comfort, with Sisters of Mercy, to introduce herself as well.
Thank you so much, Liz. Hello, everyone. My name's Marianne Comfort. I'm a member of the Justice Team of the Sisters of Mercy of the Americas, and I also chair the Interreligious Working Group on Extractive Industries. I'm usually on the land of the Piscataway, now known as Washington, D.C., but I've been vacationing in the land of the Wampanoag on Cape Cod in Massachusetts. And want to acknowledge the importance of this topic today, because in our work, we've certainly seen that the Native peoples are most often in the path of mining, oil and gas drilling, in infrastructure like pipelines. So want to acknowledge the importance of this topic for us and for our Native sisters and brothers.
Thank you, Marianne. Now that we've introduced ourselves, we want to take a quick poll to get a sense of who is with us today. And there are three questions. One is, what is your affiliation? And the second is, do you live in a frontline community affected by mining? And the last question is, when was the last time the U.S. mining law has been updated? So I see answers coming in. And for those of you who are done with the poll, we also want to get a sense of who else is here. So if you could type in the chat box your name, where you are calling from, and who the original Indigenous inhabitants are of the land where you currently live. And finally, with that, if you can just note any affiliations, if you're coming to us, connected to the Interreligious Working Group on Extractive Industries, or with United Women in Faith, or through another organization, please let us know. We'd be grateful to find out who is in our community today. We have about 73% of you. Okay, I will give it 15 more seconds as you complete. We have more people signing in, so that number continues to go up and down. I see that 83% of you are from United Women in Faith, 7 from Interreligious Working Group on Extractive Industries, and 10 others. So it's great to have you here, whether you are from either of the co-organizing groups or a friend. And do you live in a frontline community? 7% of you said yes, and 83 no, and 10% I don't know. So this is an incredible opportunity for us to really listen to heat if we are directly not from an environmental justice community or frontline community being directly affected by mining. And the last question is, when was the last time US mining laws have been updated? 37% of you say 1872, 54% say 1975, and 8% say 2009. So stay tuned for that. We will find out from our speakers what the actual answer is, and keep on typing in the chat box your affiliation and who you are. And then we'll go next into just an overview. Actually, our next slide. Will be Sister Marianne will be providing the opening prayer for us. Thank you, Marianne.
Thank you. I'm going to share with us to open our time together a prayer for our earth from Pope Francis's signature pastoral letter, Laudato Si. All-powerful God, you are present in the whole universe and in the smallest of your creatures. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life and beauty. Fill us with peace, that we may live as brothers and sisters, harming no one. O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth, so precious in your eyes. Bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it, that we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Touch the hearts of those who look only for gain at the expense of the poor and the earth. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize that we are profoundly united with every creature as we journey towards your infinite light. We thank you for being with us each day. Encourage us, we pray, in our struggle for justice, love, and peace. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Marianne. I want to invite us to, even during this webinar, to be in an attitude practicing these norms, and which is the next slide, which is known as the Sisterhood of Grace for United Women in Faith. That we listen actively with head and heart, that we speak from our own experience, that we're aware of body language, respect confidentiality, own our intentions and impacts, practice sustainability, and most certainly expect unfinished business and joy, as there will be many more things that we probably want to go deeper into, but we'll not have time because of our limited time scope. So our agenda for today, we'll begin with some framing for why our two organizations, United Women in Faith and the Interreligious Working Group on Extractive Industry, are coming together and why this topic. We'll hear from communities directly impacted from mining in the United States, past and present. We'll hear first from Chili Yazzie and Daryl Jeans Joe in a recorded video, as they are unable to attend in the first portion, and Daryl will join us during Q&A. And then after that, we will hear from Gary McKinney and Duranda Hinkie around Protect Pihi Muhu, and Douglas Cox of Menominee community and the Black Fast 40 Moms. Keep muted. And then after that, we'll hear from Aaron Minces and Raquel Dominguez with regards to an overview of mining reform and ways that we can get engaged. Following that, we will have time for ways for United Women in Faith that we can be involved, and Q&A with our speakers and next steps in closing prayer. So thank you to the speakers, especially our Native American speakers, for taking out the time to be present, to educate us and to guide us in how we too can be standing in solidarity with you. So we're going to begin with why it's important for our two organizations. We're going to do some framing. Some of you may know for United Women in Faith, climate justice is one of our 2-issue priorities, and our Just Energy for All campaign is the main mechanism in which we advocate and fight for climate justice. And we've been talking and advocating for a move away from fossil fuel and an unjust energy economy and system, moving towards a just energy system. And often that is a renewable energy system with our current technology. But the problem is this, that going to a renewable energy economy should not be based on our current unjust energy system that is often at the backs, bodies, and the lives of communities of color, Black communities, Indigenous communities, Latino, Asian American, low wealth communities in the United States, and communities least responsible around the world. So we want justice. And when we look for renewable energy economy, we know that solar panels, wind, turbines, et cetera, all of these things, and battery storage, transmission, require the use of key minerals like lithium, cobalt, nickel, graphite, magnesium, manganese, et cetera. And so we know that there needs to, these minerals are critical at this moment with current technology, but we also recognize that many of these minerals are located in fence line communities, and in particular in Native American communities where these locations of public mines, minerals in public lands are within 35 miles of Native American reservations. So what does justice look like? We have been hearing of Native American leaders and communities demanding justice, free, prior, and informed consent, and that has not been heeded. We have mining laws that need to be reformed. I also want to acknowledge that as a denomination, with it, that we are connected to, the United Methodist Church has, as I noted earlier, participated in promulgating, supporting, and benefiting from the doctrine of discovery, the legal codification that allows for theft and genocide of Indigenous land, Native American land as well. And I wanted to note that within our United Methodist Church's book of resolutions and social principles, there are words and statements that really direct what we need to do. So in the United Methodist Church's social principles, it notes water, air, soil, minerals, plants. We support and encourage social policies that serve to reduce and control the creation of industrial byproducts and waste, facilitate the safe processing and disposal of toxic and nuclear waste, and move towards the elimination of both. In the, it also notes that all creation is the Lord's, and we are responsible for the ways in which we use and abuse it. In the environmental racism in the U.S. statement, resolution 10225 in the Book of Resolutions, it notes, when Native peoples' lands are hurt today by power plants, mining, including coal, gold, copper, coltan uranium, and garbage dumps, including nuclear waste, or access to clean water, that the church should diligently work to reverse the damage and work to ensure that the right of Indigenous populations to free, prior, and informed consent are transparently honored. And two more statements. In the Energy Policy Statement 1001, it notes, we oppose that any policy that will result in continuing exploitation of Indigenous peoples' land, oil exploration, hydroelectric projects, and the mining of coal, milling of uranium, et cetera, that despoil Indigenous peoples' lands and increase health socioeconomic problems, that we oppose it. And next slide, please. And finally, in the Principles for Just and Sustainable Extractive Production, it gives us 4 guiding principles to consider when we think about policies around extraction. So the first one is do no harm. Will or do the extractive production or waste industry effectively prohibit practices that result in toxic exposure, environmental degradation, and/or human rights violations? 2, eradicate the root causes of poverty. Will or does the extractive production or waste industry increase the most impoverished people's capabilities, choices, security, and power necessary for the full enjoyment of their human rights. Consideration number 3, peoples as right holders. Will or does the extractive, production, or waste industry guarantee people's rights to participate, including transparent access to information, freedom of expression and assembly, self-determination, and effective remedy for harms committed? And number 4, sustainability. Will or does the extractive, production, or waste industry adequately protect the land, water, and air for the rights of future generations and our planet? So we should be considering these 4 principles. And I want to note that given that there are many who are connected to the United Methodist Church and United Women in Faith, so that as we're listening to the speakers, think about those 4, and then recognizing that these are the resolutions of our denomination, that we as people of faith, as part of the denomination, as United Women in Faith, have a responsibility to actually realize these commitments as well. So that's just some framing on my end. I'm going to hand it over to Marianne to give us some framing from your context.
Absolutely. So as I said, I chair the Interreligious Working Group on Extractive Industries, and we're a Washington, D.C. based coalition that has been doing a lot of education of ourselves around the harms of extractive industries. Think mining, oil and gas drilling, even hydroelectric dams can be exploitative and damaging to the environment and to Native peoples if they're sited in the wrong place. And we've been in solidarity with a lot of these communities threatened by extractive projects. I see someone mentioned in the chat about Keystone XL. So a lot of us were engaged in opposing that, and more recently, the Line 3 pipeline. And basically, just to add to what Liz said, I mean, just beautiful hearing the richness and depth of your principles and how they relate to this issue. And just so you know that this is an issue that many faith groups and people of faith of all different stripes find is very compelling and very important to engage in. And our main concern is, of course, we want to make this transition to a clean energy economy. It's critical for our future of our planet, the future of the next generations. But we don't want to do that with the mistakes of the fossil fuel era, where we sacrificed communities, where we sacrificed environments, and so forth. So we see this work around mining reform and true climate justice in this clean energy transition as an opportunity to talk about what we want to see in this transition, where we don't have sacrifice zones, where we have communities that have not just full prior and informed consent, but actually the authority to say no if they do not want any of these projects on their land. So really look forward to hearing from our guests today and seeing how they will guide us in the work that we need to do moving forward.
Thank you so much, Marianne. And Marianne Verghese is now going to start a short clip hearing both from 2 elders from the Navajo Nation.
My credentials these days is Grandpa, Farmer, and Earth Defender. We're here in Shiprock, Navajo Nation. Extraction began here back as early as the 1923, 100 years ago. Oil was first discovered in this area in 1922. And from oil, that led to gas. Then next we had uranium mining. That was very major activity here, mostly along the mountains there southwest of us.
We've gone through coal mines, uranium mines, and we saw the effects of those. Many of our elders have passed on because of those type of mining. So hearing from these elders, and there are many others telling us what's going on, and that's why I took an interest in our environment around here.
The trouble with the uranium mining was that Or Navajo miners who went into the mines were never told that the stuff could be dangerous. So, and we understand that the government and the company knew of the danger, but our miners never were informed. The view I have on all of that is that it's an exploitation in abuse of the body of the earth. And of course, we as indigenous peoples know that the earth is a living entity, and that it has spirit and that it has feelings, perhaps in a different dimension, but nevertheless, it's a living entity that feels that all of that abuse. And so the net effect of all of that with the climate crisis, is not surprising. Hundreds of our miners contracted all manner of respiratory illness, cancers. And my own dad worked in the uranium processing mill just south side of the community here, and he contracted silicosis and other respiratory problems, and he passed because of that damage that was done to his body. So the aftermath of the uranium mining was very devastating to our people. We lost many people because of that, and then the issue persists in that the descendants, the children of those miners, many of them also experienced those same kinds of ailments because their fathers, grandfathers would come home with dirty clothes, and they would bring home the water from the mines that was contaminated, so that the cancers and respiratory problems were handed down generation to generation here. And at the moment, I understand that there are over 500 mines that are still open across the Navajo Nation that still need to be remediated and so on. But the uranium that was mined out of here went to be used by the U.S. government for mostly for the power plants, etc. Daryl and I go ways back in community work. I've been doing environmental issues work since the mid-1970s. So I'm very familiar with all of the issues. And when I came to find that Daryl was involved in this kind of advocacy for the earth, it was very encouraging for me to see her in that kind of work. And certainly it's a very much added, needed voice.
Over the past years as a director, I had the opportunity to speak before the Environmental Protection Agency when they had public hearings, and I let them know. I spoke out because I'm a grandmother, I'm a great-grandmother, and not only for us, but also for all of our four-legged relatives and those that are in the water, those that fly above us.
We have to protect the health of the earth, because the life of the earth is our life. And we have to defend the future of our grandchildren. So that's our advocacy, that's our voice.
We all need to stand up, and we all need to speak up and let them know that this is what we want, because this is our land. This is our sacred land that we live on. that as United Methodist women, that we can all take a stand, that we can all be a part of the solution, and we can all work towards just energy for all.
For that, Marianne. And you've heard from Chili Yazzie about speaking about the historic and current impact of mining in the Navajo Nation, and also Daryl Junes Joe, one of our board members with United Women in Faith and Active Leaders. And she is actually currently speaking at a women's conference with the Navajo Nation today. And she will be joining us just briefly during Q&A to share more of her reflections. And she apologizes she couldn't join us immediately, but she's actually on a panel right now. And we are now hearing from the context of what has been going on historically and even to today with the Navajo Nation. We're going to transition and hear from Douglas Cox. Douglas Cox is Director of Land Management of the Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin, and he will be speaking about Back 40 Mine. So Douglas, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us context and direction in how we can be engaged.
Okay, thank you, Liz. I'm gonna try to share my screen here. Okay, hopefully everybody can see that all right. Poso moani we atanawe makana shik exwisian wasa kane mashik eswisian chamokaman Doug Cox. So my native way I'm taught is to introduce myself in those terms so everybody knows who I am, including those that watch over us, those that are gone already, and those that are all around us that we don't see, so they know who I am. And when that day comes that I have to present myself to them, they know who I am. So my name on my tax papers is Doug Cox. I'm the land management director for the Menominee Nation. Formerly spent some time as chairman, a couple terms as vice chairman. So been around government and environmental issues for a long time here at Menominee. What I'm going to talk to you about today is the proposed Back 40 mine project and the tribal impacts that we are already realizing here just from proposals, but we'll certainly realize if this mine goes into effect, the who's, what, where's, when's, Menominee's opposition efforts, current actions that we're doing, and how others can help us with this. So the first permittee in this project was known as Aquila Resources. They're an Ontario-based company, largely exploration. What does that mean? That means they're a company that goes after permits. Once they secure these permits, they then look for a mining company to extract those minerals for them. This proposed mine is a metallic sulfide mine, not unlike most proposed mines in our region. That's what this one is. In 2021, Aquila was purchased by Gold Resources Corporation. They are now the lead developer and the permit, about to be the permit applicant for this mine. Aquila, though, however, also currently maintains 2 active assets in Wisconsin. The proposed mine is actually in Upper Michigan. I'll show you locational stuff in a second here. But those secondary projects have direct ties to the primary project. I'll talk about that in a little bit. The opposition to this mine is vast. It comes from tribes, primarily Menominee, but people in Menominee County, Michigan, local environmental groups, local citizens groups, and there are local governments as well opposing this mine. So when when Aquila applied back in 2015, there was a long process that included several meetings and application information. We took the application information put together by Aquila and had an artist do a rendering. This rendering you see here, the yellow areas, is the proposed pit. This is what we foresee it looking like if this mine goes in to this area. In the foreground, you see the river, the Menominee River. that Menominee River separates Wisconsin from Michigan. And again, it's not called the Menominee River by coincidence. It has direct relationship to our Menominee people, and I'll tell you about that in a little bit. So for some perspective on this mine, the depth of this mine pit, 750 feet deep, it's going to be about 2,000 feet in length. And the river there, about 150 feet, remarkably proposed to be from the riverbank. So perspective-wise, 750 feet, if you've seen the Statue of Liberty, if you stacked 2.5 of those on top of each other, from the bottom of this pit to the top, that's how deep it will be at its conclusion. Width-wise, about 5.5 football fields from end zone to end zones. So pretty significant. From the river, about a half football field. So locationally, I mentioned this map on the left shows gray Upper Peninsula, light gray Wisconsin, orange and red dots. So the bottom orange 2 dots, Bend and Reef. Those are the 2 deposits that I mentioned that Aquila has rights to. The Back 40 project just across into Upper Michigan, the darker orange, I don't know if you can see my pointer, but darker orange is Back 40. These 2 projects that Aquila are proposing here, this project is proposing a processing plant besides the mine. All of the resources from these 2 projects will end up going up to this mine, either by truck, train, rail, various ways that may get shipped along with those treatment mineral chemicals. On the right, you can see another map with a red arrow. Down here is Green Bay. I have another map in a little bit to show you. This darker gray line, squiggly line that runs down through here is the Menominee River. On the left would be Wisconsin, on the right, Upper Michigan. That red arrow points to the mine site, the proposed mine site. And again, Menominee River, Green Bay. So you can see already some of the threats. So this is a map with some more perspective on distance of that mine to some of our resources and to the tribe. The Back 40 pin to the left up the Menominee River. If as the crow flies, you went directly to Green Bay, it's about 23 miles to Green Bay from this mine site. And again, the significance of this to the Menominee people, a lot of legends, a lot of stories about the Great Lakes in our history, but also for the general public. This threat to Green Bay and the Great Lakes ecosystems is real. It is going to impact this system. So the reservation where we reside in Northeast Wisconsin here, if you don't know Menominee, we're in Northeast Wisconsin, 1854 treaty put us here. That green rectangular outline you see there isn't a drawing. This is a satellite photo. That reservation stands out in Wisconsin because of our management approaches we've taken to our forest. We've maintained this forest as we received it for perpetuity, and we have sustainable practices. That's why it stands out. Everything around us, for the most part, forest is gone. Here we've retained it and continue to. So to the mine up there in Michigan, again, as the crow flies, which is the way chemicals and air depositions will travel. So that's the way we measure things. 40 miles from our reservation to the mine site. And as I said, the mine site is in Upper Michigan. Well, what's a Wisconsin tribe interest in a mine in Upper Michigan? I hope people can see that map because I can't. My window with all Zoom participants on it is blocking it, but I can tell you that map is a treaty resource map that we've had created. It shows all of Menominee's ceded treaties that we did, all the way from the original treaty up to current, our 1854 treaty. 9 million acres of land Menominee occupied before treaties, right at the time of treaties. The 1836 treaty in particular ceded that land that is now Upper Michigan to the United States. That was known as our Treaty of the Cedars. That treaty in 1836 gave about 1 million acres of area there. Included in that area is this proposed mine site. So some of our concerns, our creation story that the tribe has, again, as you can see from this map, we are original habitants of this area. We've been here forever. We haven't moved. We were created here. The Menominee River, where it flows into the Green Bay, is where the Menominee people came to be. And I'll tell you about that again a little bit here. Our culture is there. Our archaeology is there. It's well documented. We have sites up and down this river. We have mounds, we have burial sites, we have garden beds, both historic and prehistoric documentation up and down the river of our occupation and that importance to us. And obviously we're worried about the threat of mining exploration and the potential impacts to the river and to the environment. Besides our culture, there is going to be real impacts that everyone should be concerned with. The overall environmental health, water, fish, and wildlife that was spoke of earlier in that video you all watched. We are the protectors of that. You know, we're charged with our 7th generation. That's our philosophy. We don't speak for them, but we protect them. We protect what will be given to them, and we expect they receive things in a fashion that we had the benefit of receiving them from our past generations. And then there's those ones that don't have a voice. Besides the unborn, there's those animals, those winged ones, and those ones that swim and fly that don't have a voice. We're taught that our job is to speak for those ones because they do not have a voice in this, and we have to consider them in our decisions. Oh, shoot, I don't know what happened there. Let me go back, try it again. Okay. So some of the highlights of things we've done to date: ongoing discussions with EPA, lots of state and federal agency discussions. This is very taxing on the tribe. We're not a rich tribe. We're, again, in Wisconsin. We have to travel to Michigan for all of these communications in order to have consultation. It needs to be face-to-face. We closely monitor the progress of the project, continue to develop internal mechanisms, including a task force that the tribe has in place. That task force is seated with technical folks and our leaders. We participate in all public forums and meetings that come through the permit process. And we also submit formal comments through that process. The tribe also passed a resolution, and if I get to the end with time, I'll talk about that as well. We've had success in our legal challenges as well. We've challenged every permit so far in this process, and on the wetland permit, we were successful in court while in an administrative law proceeding on getting that wetland permit overturned. This is a picture of our historic preservation officer, Dave Greeno. He's standing by a replica of what's said to be the great bear of the Menominee Nation. That was the first being to step foot onto the land right at this place where he's standing. This is the mouth of the Menominee River here in Michigan. It's actually in Marinette. We've had ability to get some work done on this replica that was made. It's a replica of a bear that's in our museum here at Menominee, and we had it placed there. The city of Marinette helped us with this project, and they are also concerned about this mine. The story goes in our legends, so it's our creation story. It's also the story that created the action that created our clans: the eagle, the moose, the bear, the crane, and the wolf. All of our main 5 clans that were created as part of our creation story there at the mouth and on the Menominee River. Sites that exist there, here's some pictures of some of those. We have mound groups, as I mentioned, the raised agricultural fields that are tied directly to Menominee history. We have dance rings. We have something called the Village of the Epiphany. It's a story of a feast that a young Menominee woman had there on the banks of the river at a site very near this mine that has long tales about how she didn't survive and what that means to the river today. No time to tell it, so I apologize. Fish weirs that were found there that Menominees used exist, and more historically, household footprints and surface depressions, or pits as they're called. All of these features here exist up and down the Menominee River in our historic range. Pictures of the mine site, that purple line that goes around this, about 850 acres of area that the mine will occupy. These are some of the pictures from the mine permit application. Various facilities are identified in here. I won't belabor due to time. Here's the mine pit. So you can see this gray circular area. Here's the river. So this again comes right from the applicant's permit package. These are tailings management areas, which are massive. Couple hundred acres of tailings management will be there just right near the river. And tailings means waste, essentially, for those that might not know. Tailings waste from processing that's very toxic. Wetlands map here that the company prepared for the application permit. We argued that this wetlands map was inaccurate and it underplayed the extent of the impacts. The company erred so badly in their wetlands permit assessment that they failed to map an entire stream in this area, and we caught it, and it was one of our arguments in the contested case hearing in front of the administrative law judge, which again, we were successful at. Interestingly enough, this archaeological map that the company prepared, you can see the white boxes down here in purple is again the mine site. These white boxes are the company's archaeological company that did the surveys for them that documented archaeological resources. What do you see strange about this? Well, if you haven't caught it yet, their documentation of ARC resources ends right at the mine property. So what happens down here? We knew our history, we knew our archaeology there. We have experts, our cultural resource experts redid the survey. And when we redid the survey, we found that, and again, busy map, I'm sorry, all these numbers and black lines down here at the bottom, the black squared and red squared are the mine site. You can see how many sites are adjacent to or within the mine property, formerly proper, where the company's archaeological work ended right up here. We finished that for them and told them really where the archaeological resources are. We're also proposing a historic district. We filed with Park Service for that nomination. Wisconsin State Historic Preservation Office did approve that. Their board approved it. We're now going to Michigan. If this gets approved, we will have a historic district named Anam Omat there on both sides of the Menominee River. Very important to the Menominee people, and it'll solidify that fact for us in history. Today we're doing education like this, presenting as much as we can to groups. Legally, we filed challenges, still continuing to do that. I mentioned earlier, the wetland challenge was one. We're also arguing a 404 authority there, that the river that we feel like the federal government has missed on the Menominee River. These aren't listed as 404 authority wetlands. They're under Michigan's control. Networking and fundraising, we'll continue to do that. We've done much fundraising, and we'll continue to do that. We have zero tribal dollars to expend on this effort. We've been using grants and in-kind as a work on this. Earth Justice has helped us greatly in the legal challenges. If it weren't for them, we wouldn't nearly be where we are. Community grassroots efforts up in Michigan, several groups helping us very actively. There's the resolution that the tribe passed, 15-93, basically says we oppose to all mining activity that impacts our culture and our historic areas. And this is stuff people can do for us to help. So I thank everybody for your attention, and thank you to the organizers for inviting us to speak here today. I appreciate it.
Douglas, thank you so much for the context that you provided and what is happening. And just a visual image of 2.5 statues of the Statue of Liberty and Death and 5.5 football fields back to Langdon. That's so close to the river itself, and the threat that it's having in terms of your culture, archaeological sites, way of being, health, environmental. So thank you so much, and the work that you're doing. And very clear areas that we can be involved in support as well. We're going to transition now to hear more from what is going on with the people of Red Mountain, and the two speakers will be Duranda Hinkey, who is a member of the Fort McDermott Paiute and Shoshone tribe, as well as Gary McKinney, Western Shoshone, Northern Paiute Indian, enrolled member of the Duck Valley Shoshone Paiute tribe of Idaho, Nevada. And both of them are spokespersons for the Atsa Kudaku Way Nuwu, the people of Red Mountain. Thank you so much for both of you to be speaking and giving us context and for the work that you're doing right now.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for having us here. I'm going to start sharing my screen for our presentation. And that's not it. 1 second. Okay, are you seeing what the presentation? A thumbs up if you do see it. Okay, perfect. Thank you guys. Hello, my name is Duranda Hinkey, and I am from the Fort McDermott Paiute and Shoshone Reservation, but I have many ties to a lot of the people and the reservations around us. So I like to say that I'm from everywhere. And if Gary would like to introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gary McKinney, spokesperson for Atsaquadaquawanua, the people of Red Mountain. I am an enrolled member of the Duck Valley Shoshone Paiute people of Northern Nevada, Southern Idaho. I have maternal ties to the Fort McDermott Paiute Shoshone people, and so thank you for allowing us this space.
Yeah, so we are the people of Red Mountain, or Atsaquadaquawanua, and we are here to protect Pihimaha, or also known as Thacker Pass. There is a potential lithium mine project in this area. And if you don't know what lithium is, it's probably, right in your computer or in your phone that you're looking at right now. Lithium is really important, I guess, for like the transition to green energy and these lithium batteries. And so we're seeing a really big increase of lithium products, as well as the huge demand for lithium. And so that is why there is lithium mines popping up left and right. And so the reason why you see a huge lithium deposit is because the McDermott caldera, which is on the Nevada-Oregon border, which we see in the map to the left, has some big deposits. And so if you can see with my cursor right here is the Thacker Pass project. It's including the plan of operations as well as exploration. And then you can also see the Fort McDermott Reservation right here in this bottom corner as well. And so it's pretty close to the reservation. This is where I reside. And so onto the map to the left, or excuse me, to the right, we also see the other reservations that are near this project area. So we have, again, the Fort McDermott tribe right here, as well as Summit Lake Reservation and Winnemucca Indian Colony right here. And so this Thacker Pass lithium mine, it really boomed during the Trump and Biden administration change. It was like the last few days of Trump's administration. It got fast tracked through the environmental impact statement. It took about a year to write as well as to finalize. And so that is very, very unusual. We usually see environmental impact statements being about 3 to 5 years. And so what really happened in this was a lot of push throughs, as well as what we're worried about is the tribal consultation. And it's really hard when consultation is sending somebody a letter and allowing them only 30 days to respond to this huge draft environmental impact statement, which is 150 pages, right? And allowing the tribe to consult. right? And so that's kind of where we're at, is tribal consultation wasn't as good as you know, we wish it could. And I think that obviously requires a lot of reform. But yeah, this is the Thacker Pass lithium mine. However, we are also dealing with, you know, more exploration areas, right? These are known zones of lithium mineralization. And so this is, again, the McDermott caldera. And, you know, our everything's being threatened in this area. And what I mean by that is the water is being threatened, the air is being threatened. And what they want to do at this lithium mine is they want to burn sulfuric acid. Sulfuric acid is not good for people. It's very toxic. And so we see a lot of these chemicals being burned to leach the lithium out of this clay, out of the dirt, and then that air being polluted, as well as the water, right? And in this area, we live in a high desert ecosystem. This high desert ecosystem does not have a lot of water. It does not have a lot of surface water. It is mostly groundwater. Nevada is known for groundwater, but that offers a lot of, you know, challenges and, you know, potential pollution and contamination. And it's not, you know, if the pollution is going to happen, it's going to be when. And how is it going to affect the community? How is it going to affect the tribe? How is it going to affect the medicines that we go and pick? How is it affecting the animals that we have to hunt and gather? What about our spiritual places? And so those things are all something that we have to think about. And so not only do we have the Lithium Americas, we also have other lithium mines within distance of the Fort McDermott reservation. We have the Jindalee Resources, which is right here. If you can see my cursor, it is a little bit closer to the Fort McDermott tribe, as well as this Acme. It's on the Oregon border. And this map to our left is a lot of the drilling areas and the claims for the Jindalee Resources Limited, or the McDermott lithium mine. And so the reason why I put that up there is because you know, with this push to a renewable energy, it's hurting the communities that, you know, are near it, right? It's not just the Fort McDermott tribe. We also see the McDermott community, as well as a few other ranching communities like the Kings River Valley. We see the Orvada community, and much, much more. And so that's kind of something we think about, right? Who's it affecting? And so when I think about these things, I think about, you know, what has happened to Argentina and Chile and Bolivia and Tibet and, you know, Australia and a bunch of other countries that have lithium mining, and what has affected those people. And there's ranchers, there's indigenous people there. They've all been saying, you know, the lithium is not good, right? It's contaminating water, it's destruction of land, you know, it's a bunch of things. So next slide. I put this on here just to show the immensity of lithium mining, or yeah, it's gonna happen. It's happening everywhere. It's popping off, you know. So right at the top three are the three that I showed you in the past map. This Big Sandy Lithium project, I would like to really highlight this one because this is for threatening the Wallapai tribe down in Arizona. And I had the opportunity, Gary and myself had the opportunity to go and, you know, stand in solidarity with the Wallapai tribe down here, and this is hurting them. So shout out to them if you don't know about them already. And then here are other ones that are happening in Arizona, Nevada, and Oregon. And so I put that up there just to show that with the production of more lithium products, greenwashing, capitalism, you see that, you know, lithium mining isn't going to be just, you know, one little thing. They want, this is like billions, $1 trillion project. And so that's something that we got to think about when we supposedly move to green energy. I also put this up here just quickly to go over it, just the, you know, the huge demand and increase of EV cars, electric vehicles. in the next coming years and how they expect it to go up so high. And so I personally do not think that everyone getting an EV car is going to save the earth or, neutralize carbon emissions. I think that's pretty crazy. And I want to mention that right here with this electric car is that it takes a lot of extractive industries, extractive resources, and all of this to create this one battery for an electric vehicle. And one thing I like to point out right here is the copper mining that it takes to mine. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of the Oak Flats down in Arizona, but that's what they've been working on. That's what they've been pushing against is copper mining, because that is going to affect their spiritual beliefs, their religion, their young girls becoming women, rite of passage, those things. And so we see a lot of nasty stuff that's going to happen moving to EV cars, and that's just something that doesn't sound very feasible for everyone to have an electric vehicle, because it's going to have so much damage. And so right here, I'd like to pass it off to Gary, and I would like him to talk about MMIP, just because he has always put my voice as well as a lot of women and elders in front of him. And I think he's a really good person to talk about the proposed man camp at Thacker Pass as well as MMIP.
Thank you, Duranda, for giving that that piece there. I am Gary McKinney, a spokesperson for Altsakwadaka Wanua, and the missing and murdered Indigenous people aspect of this Thacker Pass has come in a pretty let's say roundabout kind of way. And because in the EIS, the whole thing is that in the environmental impact statement, they're saying in there, when I say they, I'm talking about the Lithium Americas company, Lithium Nevada's, they're stating that that there's not going to be a man camp. And for those of you who don't know what a man camp is a place where mine workers who don't live in the area, they will come and they will stay there 24/7. And this mine will be operating for the next 40 to 60 years at 24/7. So these mine workers from out of the area have no ties and no roots to these communities, these indigenous communities. And as it is, our women and our relatives that go missing don't tend to get as much attention as otherwise. And so we feel that there's a problem, and it is being introduced to our communities through these extractive industries, these corporations that are foreign, these Canadian companies such as Lithium Americas. They also have mining operations internationally in Chile, Argentina, and this is Lithium Americas. And so Lithium Nevada is a subsidiary company of Lithium Americas. And despite Lithium Nevada's characterization of the mine as green, the company estimates that it will produce 150,703 tons of carbon dioxide emissions every year. The water, air, land, wildlife, plants, and everything in between will all pay the ultimate price for lithium-powered batteries, for electric vehicles, and so-called clean energy. In full operation, the mine plans to use 1.7 billion gallons of water per year in a hydrographic basin that is already over-allocated by 30,271 AFA. 680 tons of sulfur will be burned per year. 2,900 tons of sulfuric acid will be produced per day at the on-site sulfuric acid plant. And so at the expense of these indigenous communities where consultation is at a low, it's a very minimum. What can we do to ensure that we preserve our culture and our histories aside from these government doings and agreements? So we have been practicing ERFA, the American Indian Religious Freedom Act. It's supposed to be free of government control, but we have been, the things that where we are today is with the Bureau of Land Management, the BLM. They're locking us out of our cultural site, and so these are issues that we need everyone to understand in good faith. And so we go there to pray for our cultural site in good faith, but we're not being allowed to by a locked gate. And so those kinds of things right there are a big impact. It's a negative impact to our cultural communities because we have cultural ties in history to that area, to Thacker Pass. And Thacker Pass has a history of one documented massacre and one orally kept massacre. So those known facts are in the history books. One is documented, and so that's the one that we know as the September 12th, September 12th, 1865. So that that is our cultural ties to the area, where there are 923 cultural sites at Pahimaha, and 56 of them are eligible for the National Register of Historical Places. And so to us, what that means is, for example, the Sand Creek Massacre was granted a protection because of the fact that there was ties of the United States Army and one of these tribal, these indigenous communities, also known as these, the Arapahoes and Cheyennes. And they are on the National Register of Historical Places. And speaking with former superintendents of that area, a lot of things, a lot of things are there, which makes it eligible for that. And so, what can we do to elevate our voices? And hearing a brother speak before us, that's something that we see interstate and internationally, is that our people, our elders, let's say, for example, being in good faith, these mining companies, they could come to our indigenous communities in good faith and say and ask and request for one of the traditional elders there on the reservation to come forward, and we can ask them, are you operating in good faith? Are you taking any medications? Are you mentally sound to do this interview? Okay, all those check out. And so those kinds of things like that need to be brought forward, but there is no policy. So far, we have policies like the 1872 General Mining Law that says that the best interest of the public land is to mine it. And so the big gap between 1872 and 2022, there's 150 years worth of this land being taken, minerals being extracted. And so what we want, what we really need to do is oppose the Defense Production Act, which will be allowing these mining companies, foreign mining companies, to come in and take from that area without consulting with these tribes, without so much as looking their way. And so we're looking at it like this is an intertribal issue. This is an interstate issue. This is an international issue. And so, just doing things in good faith, that's where we are as spokespeople for the people of Red Mountain, is making certain that our tribal history is acknowledged in the way that we can preserve it, and building communities is a key thing for that. I think that I've gone over plenty of things here. I'm going to turn it back over to Duranda there to go over anything else that I may have missed. I thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it. Aho.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. One thing I wanted to mention with this MMIP, missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, two-spirit people, and people, and everyone really, but is that this issue is directly tied and correlated to pipelines, construction, mining, these kinds of things. And this is a social aspect that is going to be very challenging and scary for our people in the area. And so, you know, man camps, with the upbringing of these man camps is pretty hard and something to deal with, but I think that requires a lot of awareness. And so I want to finish up here soon, but the protection of sacred sites, culture, and traditions. Gary mentioned this, but one thing I just like to add is, you know, these pictures, right? This is all at Pihemaha or Thacker Pass. And in these photos is Gary digging up roots and food. And this is something that, you know, this still practiced, and it holds us to the land. And, you know, Pihemaha, it has the stories that Gary was mentioning, and with the destruction of a mine coming in, and is complete erasure of our culture and our stories and the meanings of these places, the original name of these places. And then, right, again, is prior informed consent is, you know, what I believe Mary Ann was talking about earlier was, you know, having this free prior informed consent, but also having the ability to say no. And I think that's really important, and definitely needs to be pushed through and reformed. And again, the General Mining Act of 1872, I definitely think that, again, needs to be reformed, given that it was in 1872. And I know that somebody else was going to talk about that a little bit more in depth, so I'll leave that to them. But I just like to thank you guys for. And one thing I'd like to point out is just that, Douglas, I thought that was awesome that your tribe pushed that resolution of having anything that like mining comes in, if it hurts, you know, the culture, the people, that you wouldn't push it through. And so congrats to your tribe for doing that. That's awesome.
Thank you both so much, to Duranda and Gary. You have given us so much context and the need to fight for the protection of Pihemaha and what we can do to be part of that. You also not only related to your own context, but also that it's impacting other Indigenous communities. 15 proposed mining projects and drilling permits in Nevada, Oregon, Arizona. You talked about greenwashing, and EVs is not the solution. Thanks for commenting on that and saying that we have work to do as people of faith, and missing and murdered Indigenous peoples and women in particular, and what that means, especially as a United Women in Faith, as a women's organization, what that means to stand in solidarity as well. Thank you for the work. And giving us very clear directives on what we need to be doing next. And Gary, you spoke about the Sand Creek Massacre. I want to acknowledge that the United Methodist Church participated in that. And so if we are seeking acts of repentance, as the denomination says that it needs to, and acts of justice, we really need to be doing more work in this. So thank you for sharing again. Now we're going to transition to Aaron and Raquel, who are both with Earthworks. And you have their bios actually online. But I'm going to hand it over to them for them to talk more about, well, mining reform and what we can do. So I know we are short for time, but we would love to know a little more context and how we can be engaged in that work.
Hi, everyone. Excuse me. I'm Raquel Dominguez. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Circular Economy Policy Advocate for Earthworks. I'm here with my boss, Aaron Minces, and we're going to talk to you a little bit about the policies around mining on so-called federal lands in the so-called United States. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Nope, that's the wrong one. There you are. Okay. Can you see it? Yes. Okay, cool. There we go. Okay, cool. Sorry, I lied. This is not doing what it's supposed to do. Sorry. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble with this. Okay, I think that'll do it. My computer's just being really slow today. Sorry about that. So Aaron and I both work for Earthworks, which is an organization dedicated to advocating with and for communities on the front lines of extraction, both oil, gas, and hard rock mining. Hard rock mining refers to everything under the ground, all minerals under the ground that aren't oil, gas, coal, or sand and gravel, essentially. So hard rock mining covers gold, platinum, lithium, rare earth elements, silver, stuff like that. And that's what we work on. So first, I'm going to start out with two quotes. One's from President Biden when he was remarking when his administration was releasing his hard rock mining principles, which we'll get to in a second. And the quote is, "So we can avoid the historical injustices that too many mining operations left behind in American towns. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. It used to be an anthracite coal mine, and mining is mining, but there's all kinds of it. And that's why we're working to modernize America's mining laws and regulations, some of which are 150 years old." And then this is a quote from Interior Secretary Holland at the South by Southwest Festival last year. And she is an enrolled member of the Laguna Pueblo in what we now call New Mexico. And the Laguna Pueblo have a lot of experience with uranium mining in particular. And she said, "I know firsthand what it looks like to have a toxic abandoned mine in my community. I've seen families struggle with the health impacts of that and with the environmental degradation of what detonating dynamite every day for 30 years caused, while the largest open pit uranium mine in the world was made. The company then simply abandoned it when it was no longer cost effective, and it took decades to remedy." And she's referring to the Jackpile uranium mine, which was for a time the largest uranium mine in the world, which has caused just massive amounts of devastation to the environments and the communities living nearby. So turning it over to Aaron for this.
And thank you, Raquel. So earlier we heard from Liz about the doctrine of discovery, where mainly European nations, particularly the English and the Spanish and the French, brought their law to the doctrine of discovery here. Skipping ahead to the Marshall Trilogy, Justice Marshall in the United States Supreme Court created the treaty-making period. And then in 1871, Congress ended treaty-making with indigenous tribes within the United States. The following year, in 1872, Congress enacted the General Mining Law. That law still governs hard rock mining in the United States of America, in most of the United States of America today. The mining law, as we've indicated, to this day perpetuates the settler colonialism of indigenous resources. It was intended, of course, to govern more pick and shovel mining and not the large scale industrial mining that happens today. And then the mining law gives holders of valid mine claims staked on ancestral lands a self-initiated right to mine that the government cannot deny under their legal view. And this is distinguished from, say, oil, gas, coal, or any other land use, where the government could in fact withhold their own consent. And so we'll speak about this a little bit later when we talk about mining reform and consultation and free, prior, and informed consent, and how we can try to get from here to there. Raquel, could we just move to the next slide a little bit, please? Where are we now? Ah, yes. So, as we saw, the president announced an interagency working group and a set of principles. We're going to very quickly run through a couple of those things. Those principles were prompted in part by a petition for a new mining rule led by some conservation organizations and some tribes and some indigenous-led organizations, as well as a component of the president's infrastructure law. The purpose of this interagency working group on mining reform and circular economy is to gather information, to develop some recommendations, and to improve both hard rock mining regulations and the circular economy as well. And so, Raquel, would you take it away with at least a couple of the principles?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So what are called Critical minerals is a term applied to the minerals that are going to be needed in much greater quantities for renewable energy technology. These include the minerals necessary for solar panels, for all kinds of batteries, especially electric vehicle batteries, wind turbines, and things like that. So those minerals are some of the ones you've already heard from other speakers: manganese, cobalt, lithium, copper, etc., things like that. So my job title is Circular Economy Policy Advocate, which means I specialize in the circular economy, which is an economy that is founded on reuse, recycling, substitution, and demand reduction over new extraction. So principle 3 of the president's principles is about prioritizing recycling, reuse, and the efficient use of critical minerals. And it says the recycling, reuse, and efficient use of existing mineral assets should be assessed and relied upon where possible before developing new sources, which is a really good start for the record. I think considering how incredibly outdated our mining law is, this is a really good step forward. But that said, it still assumes that we should be extracting minerals from, whether it's from like pre-existing wastes or from the earth. And in our earthworks, we're really pushing for a much bigger step in circular economy policies. So an example of that would be what's happening in the European Union right now. They're developing something called what we call the EU Battery Directive, which will basically define how batteries are extracted, made, and disposed of for the entire continent. And some of the specific policies the Battery Directive includes are mandatory take-back policies, extended producer responsibility, and labeling that would make disposing and recycling batteries much easier. There we go. This is the principle 8, which says that some areas must be off limits to mining and protected from mining impacts. And what's really important about that is that according to interpretations of the 1872 mining law, the government can legally not deny a mine. Like it's pretty much impossible. And that goes for places that are special, that are holy, that are important for environmental reasons, etc. And so this is a really important principle because literally some places should just not be mined for a whole host of reasons. And then principle 10 is the utilization of the best science and data. And we, in particular, we're huge fans of the administration's emphasis on indigenous traditional ecological knowledge, because indigenous people were and continue to do science that settlers don't, and they know they stewarded these lands for 10,000 and often more years, and ignoring that knowledge is a huge, massive mistake that leaves us lacking a lot of the knowledge we need to be good to the land. Aaron, is this? No, this one's me.
Oh, we can take it both if you want.
Okay,
I just wanted to make a point about, yeah, well, Duranda was talking earlier about how consultation is not consent. And the president's principle here reads, at least in part, there must be regular, meaningful, and robust consultation with tribal nations. So, Duranda is right. The U.S. technically has consultation, but really it's kind of like, just so you know, this is what we're doing. Right. So, for example, let's talk about the Big Sandy project impacting the Wallapai tribe in what is now Arizona, also a lithium project. Under the General Mining Law of 1872, because it's an exploration project that is fewer than 5 acres, while the Big Sandy operators have to notify the federal government, they don't have to ask permission. That's short of They don't have to ask for permission. They just get to drill. That's different if it were like an oil and gas thing, by the way. Now, asking permission from the federal government is not even consulting with the Wallapai. It's not consulting with the Fort McDermott Paiute Shoshone or anyone else. That's just notifying the government, just so you know. Consultation in the United States is really sending a letter, just so you know. What we would like to see is reform of the 1872 mining law. We would like to see free, prior, and informed consent codified into American law. And there are examples internationally where this is beginning to take place, at least on paper. It doesn't mean that it's enforced, but at least on paper. So Congress should codify UNDRIP, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, the ILO Convention 169. We should codify that here, and then we should also amend our mining law. And that way, hopefully, we'll have a better kind of system which enforces a free, prior, and informed consent, allowing for the actual right to say no. Raquel, did I miss anything there about Principle 9 that you wanted to add?
I don't think you missed anything, but I did want to mention that in the nation we now call Canada, they initially did not sign on to the UNDRIP, the United Nations Declaration, but that changed a few years ago. They signed on to it at the UN, and then they ratified it in Canada. And then what they did was the federal government passed a law allowing provinces, their states essentially, to pass their own laws regarding free, prior, and informed consent. And Canada is a massive, massive mining company, or a company. It's a massive, massive mining country. And 3 provinces, Ontario, British Columbia, and Quebec, have all passed province level statutes guaranteeing free, prior, and informed consent. I will not claim that they have always been it has been integrated in every single project. But again, the US is woefully, woefully antiquated in literally every aspect of mining. So that's definitely something to aspire for. So back to the interagency working group. So comments for this interagency working group close on the 31st, July 31st. So in about a month and a half, I think, because it's somehow halfway through June already. And the IWG is looking for comments from all of these groups. So obviously Earthworks falls into non-governmental organizations. Earthworks and our peer organizations are writing 7 technical comment letters with that, meaning they're written by lawyers, which I don't understand them, but I assume they're great. But we're also going to be writing and circulating a sign-on letter with less technical comments and more just big picture things that we want the interagency working group to recommend to the administration. And we'd love for any groups that you organizations that you belong to sign on to that. So whenever I'm actually going to start sending around that Google form tomorrow morning, so I can make sure to send that to Liz if anybody would like to sign on to it. You can also submit your own comments at the address below. If you have any questions about this, you can always email either Aaron or myself. Here are some final resources. This one up top is the sign-on letter. This is an action alert, also sending comments to the interagency working group. This is an op-ed by Gary McKinney, who you heard speak a few minutes ago. This is a couple of statements from communities impacted by lithium extraction in the Southwest, and there's some others. Yeah, you can email either Aaron or myself if you have any questions about this.
Thank you so much for that information. There was a lot there, and if you were wondering, 1872 is the answer in terms of mining law and where we are at. So 150 years that mining is prioritized over Indigenous people's rights, recreation, environmental justice, environmental conservation. So there's a lot of work to do. So what we are going to do is pass those along. I'm mindful of time because we are at time already. I wanted to also note that United Women in Faith does have a easy click on action alert where we will also be submitting from the perspective of faith communities. And we also noted some of the resolutions. So we have a draft that you can modify as well, especially thinking about the circular economy and is there actually true, free, prior, and informed consent in the process? So did want to note that. With your permission, I'm not sure if the speakers need to go. I wonder if we can have our closing prayer and then go to more Q&A and conversations afterwards, just given the time, if that's okay, for those who are able to join. And I know Daryl was trying to join, but I'm not sure if she's joined us yet. So I'm going to invite Linda, who is our social action coordinator for the Northern Illinois United Women in Faith. Correct me if I have that correct. And Linda, if you can close us in prayer, and then we will go into some Q&A.
Okay, thank you. Please join me in prayer. Dear God, we are in awe of the world you created, star-filled skies, majestic mountains, clear streams, boundless seas, innumerable creatures. You set the world in perfect order. You asked us to care for your world, and in so many ways we have failed. In our desire for more and better, newer and faster, we have damaged the resources you gave us. We have harmed the land held sacred by so many. We have created unsafe communities for families. The road ahead of us will not be easy. We ask that you give strength to those who are working for just solutions, that they not grow weary. We ask that those in power be given wisdom to find solutions which prioritize people in our world over greed and misuse of resources. Help us all to work together to find just solutions for all people and to best care for our one world. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you for that, Linda. And so for those who need to go, blessings to you. We will be sending out resources, and for the speakers who are able to stay, that would be wonderful. We'll have you on share our speaker view. And if there are any questions, please note those in the comment and in the chat box, and we can address those. But as we are waiting for some of the questions, as we've heard, there's much to do right now, and I want to actually invite both Duranda and Gary and Douglas, as you are, if you are still here, just to share about some immediate action steps, because sometimes it feels like there could be so much that can be done, and we in the interfaith, interreligious, and also faith community connected to United Women Faith, what can we do? If there's two things that we can do today, what would you say that we do?
For Menominee, it would be these permit processes are going to get underway. The new Gold Resources Corporation licensee is applying for their new license, and they're going to have a pre-scoping effort as part of that, and this is going to be noticed. We'll have that information on our website. If you can comment on those processes, that would be a great first step.
Thank you.
Thank you, Douglas. This is Gary McKinney, the people of Red Mountain. First thing, you could go to www.peopleofredmountain.com and find important links. There is ways to sign the petition. Spread the word with your friends and colleagues about that fight. Educate yourself by Googling Pahimaha and Thacker Pass. That's what I got. Appreciate it.
Yep, I would just say the same thing. I dropped in 2 links and I'll also drop it to you as well, just so everyone can get the link. But I dropped in a petition for taking action against the MMIW G2S crisis, as well as the our website.
Thank you. Thank you for the resources and placing them on the websites. And I know there are various faith communities, including United Women in Faith here. Think about, please consider passing this to your various networks that you are a part of, the listservs, and there are sign-on statements. Think about some of our denominational entities are actually in their annual conferences, meetings that are happening. So it might be places where we're highlighting these issues as well. Just a question that often comes up is, would you be available to be speaking in other settings, and how can we reach out to you for that? Because I know that, we have some who are on fire being like, okay, we got to address this. More people need to hear about it. What are some of the next steps on that?
Well, for me, you can reach me directly. My email, I'll throw in the chat, is dgcox@mitw.org. You can reach me email that way. Also, I'll throw my phone number, my direct line in there for direct contact and more information on this. It's vast. There's a lot of info. Best to contact us and try to get you back information that way. And again, thank you.
Yeah, Gary McKinney here. I would have to concur with Douglas there. You could contact me at pahimahacamp@gmail.com and reach out also to the people of Red Mountain at gmail.com. Thank you.
Same with me. Just as Gary mentioned, those 2 emails would be fine.
Thank you. And just an invitation for those who will be reaching out, please consider providing honorariums that are appropriate, so that we are not just asking Native American leaders to be speaking and not providing financial compensation and support. So I just want to note that, because I think sometimes faith groups and other groups, well-intentioned, do not think about the incredible work that they're doing and the financial support that's needed. And please consider mission giving. This is ways to give and support, and there has been a request for financial support as well. So I just wanted to reiterate that, and those websites have possibilities for engagement. Are there any questions that are here? I'm not seeing any. So given the time, I wanted to invite all the speakers, just in the order as you presented, any last words that you have for us as we close our time here.
Just again, thank you to United Women in Faith for the opportunity. Appreciate it. We'll do this as much as we can. It's important to the tribe, and I know it's important to all nations for us to be able to communicate our issues out there. Far too often, we don't get enough opportunities in consultation to do this, so the more the merrier. And I'll say Wanwanan Katanen, thank you, my friends.
Gary, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't say too much, but I'll just let's get to work. Reach out to those emails on there. That's all I want to say. I'll pass it.
Thank you to all the speakers and the moderators and everyone that attended. I really appreciate you guys for allowing us a space, and I think that's really important and a good step. So, thank you for that, as well as thank you for Douglas and connecting like that. I didn't know about your struggle over there, and given this opportunity, it was a good time to get to know you and your struggle as well. So thank you.
Thank you for inviting us to speak.
Me too. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you all. And Marianne had to step away, but again, the charge is very clear of what we need to do. This recording will be available, so we encourage you all to use this recording in your various interreligious faith groups during your services, etc., so that the word goes out. And we should not be only hearers of the word, but doers of the word. Thank you again to all the speakers, for our Indigenous leaders, for really just graciously offering your time and the fight that you continue to do. And I hope that we will stand in solidarity in ways that honor and respect you, your tradition, your calls. So thank you. Thank you for Earthworks. Earthworks has been partnering with us for a number of years. We had Lauren Pagel speak and Jennifer Kroll speak in the past, and I've seen Aaron at US CAN meetings, so it's good to be in the space with you all. So thank you all again, and thank you to all who joined us and the co-sponsorship with the Interreligious Working Group on Extractive Industries. Blessings to you, and we look forward to seeing you all in the future.